Raven-Symone, bitch, I need you to be quiet. Like, I need you to be so fucking quiet right now because I'm about to read you for fucking filth. Actually, shit, let me get my spectacles, darling. Okay? Let's read this bitch, all right, shall we? Now first, Raven. I've been wanting to say this shit for so long, and I'm so excited that I finally have the space, the time, the battery life, okay? First, Raven, don't nobody know you, bitch. We don't know who you are. We don't know. No one knew. For a long time, I want to say the first thing that we knew you from was the Cosby Show. You was a sassy little light-skinned child with some wild eyebrows trying to, you know, get your little fame, get your little coin. Cute. Then I think we saw you hanging with Mr. Cooper. I can't confirm that because I don't really remember that show because that was a long time ago. And then, most famous, you are remembered for That's So Raven being Raven the motherfucker Baxter. You are not Raven Baxter. You are Raven the fuck Symone Pierman. That's who you really are. But because the show was named That's So Raven, I believe a lot of people internalize this idea that the person who was so headstrong and so morally like on the right side of shit was in fact who you truly are. And that is not the fucking case. Because every time I look at the media and I see your name, it's always attached to some anti-black ass, coonerific ass, light-skinned ass, I'm from every continent in Africa ass bullshit. And I'm sitting here like, why are people so surprised when, again, we don't know who you are? We don't know you. And therefore, it's so important that we start to know her through what she's putting out as an adult. It seems like her parents sheltered her for a large part of her life. It seems like she really did get that light-skinned brainwashing. And if you're a light-skinned person, there is a lot of brainwashing going on in terms of like light-skinned folks being able to navigate and have mobility. There is privilege for sure. I will not denounce that. But I think that along with the privilege, there is this mindset that is constantly perpetuated that because you are light-skinned and mixed, you are somehow more fucking palatable and more able to move through spaces and be seen as less threatening because first you're light-skinned, also seemingly have a command of Queen's English and doesn't really engage too much in African American vernacular English, perhaps because you never had to for survival or because that was just not the way or rather, yeah, survival. That's like a lot of times African American vernacular English, that is a survival ass language because most of the people who speak African American vernacular English are able to understand other folks in their communities who can speak African American vernacular English and therefore are able to kind of be more comfortable around other folks who are able to perhaps code switch or not. Again, being able to code switch is also a privilege, but I've never seen Raven do either of those things. I've seen her only speak in Queen's English, and I've seen her, again, be extremely anti-black, classist, and on some respectability politics. Another thing I wanted to say was, when I first was taken aback by something that she said, it was along the lines of, you know, that she had an interesting grade of hair. And I feel like that's when I first realized that that brainwashing, that light-skinned brainwashing was actually being perpetuated in the media by another person of color and just trying to seemingly indoctrinate other light-skinned people and have them sitting up here like, I do have an interesting grade of hair. And I am not black. I will not take on the label of black. I know for myself for a long time, I was more concerned with having folks know that I was not just black, which again, that is self-exotification, that is some light-skinned fuckery, and that's some coon shit. But being transparent, there were always reasons and seemingly advantages, definitely, not even seemingly, advantages to not saying that I was just black or not even mentioning that I was black first when I'm talking about my heritage or cultural background or whatever the fuck I was trying to insinuate by letting folks know I'm not just black, or you know what I mean? So when Raven starts talking about her fine grade of hair, starts talking about being from different continents in Africa, which we all know she meant to say I'm from every country in Europe, you know what I mean? Or I have blood from every country in Europe and every country in in Africa. It's clear that's what the fuck she really meant to say, which means she was trying to let you know that she is not a nigga. Like, that's what she wanted to convey, because that's all the fuck light-skinned people are trying to do when they're trying to remind you, oh, well, I have family from here and my lineage is from here. It is just a way to self-exotify. It is a way to seem less black, which is a privilege, which is a way to definitely have more access and definitely be more palatable. Today, I'm coming here because I'm sick of this bitch. I'm so sick of her. And you know what, the thing is, it's not even like it's isolated. It's not like it's isolated. I feel like talking about ghetto names, I feel like talking about what names qualify in terms of employment, I think that's a very worthwhile conversation to have. I don't think it's a worthwhile conversation for a light-skinned person named raven-motherfucking-symone to be having, in terms of disparaging people who have names that perhaps have a root word of a fruit. Because if we're being real, if you want to say watermelondrea is a ghetto name, if you want to say that, then what stops Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter Apple from being a racist name? What stops that, or excuse me, a ghetto name? What stops that? Is it because she's white? Is it because she has money? Or is it because you do not want to really understand the ways in which you're being anti-black, and therefore you're going to say, well, this name is not rooted in Anglo-Saxon Christianity roots, so therefore this name has no worth, and therefore that person has no worth, and therefore they can never get a job with me. Raven-Symone, if your line of thinking was across the board and everyone was consenting to that shit, you probably wouldn't have a job, bitch, if we're being fucking real. And I think if I'm being also honest, there's also a difference between having a quote-unquote ghetto name and being a light-skinned person. I think for a long time, before I decided that, like, my chosen name was Quincy, my name was Tati-Anna. That is the real way my mother decided to spell my name. She said that she thought it was interesting, had a little flair. For me, I thought that it was the worst name ever when I was younger. And it wasn't even about it being ghetto. I just think, like, my name was just uncommon. I had never met anyone else whose name was Tatiana. Fuck the spelling. I never met anyone with that name in my hood or anywhere around the way. And I felt like the name kind of, like, had a life of its own. I feel like when people found out my name, it was a hyper-sexualizing moment where that person was like, ooh, Tatiana, that's a sexy name, that's a beautiful, and just trying to, seemingly in ways, use that to kind of be the guide into exotifying me by trying to figure out what my mix was or what race I really am, because Tatiana is a Russian name, and therefore, because of that, I may be Russian, or I may have Russian in my family, or, you know, all these other things that people want to take out of context, because names do mean something in our society. In our racist ass, patriarchal ass, anti-fucking queer, trans antagonistic, and fat antagonistic ass world, names do matter. And so with that being said, when Raven-Symone, you know, decides that someone with the name Watermelondrea can't have a job because of her name, what kind of message does that send to black girls all around the world who have different names, or rather not names that are rooted in the Christian Anglo-Saxon, you know, just the entire culture of having a name that is not perhaps on a keychain or on a t-shirt. That's how I feel. I feel like if your name is not common and you're black, therefore your name must be ghetto. But if your name is not common and you're white, then your name is interesting. And it's a really fucked up thing, because if you think about it, white folks got names like Hank, got names like Spencer, got names like fucking Chandler. There's all these names out there that aren't really typical, aren't biblical names, and I'm not trying to say that you need to have a biblical name to be respected. I'm just saying these names don't really have a place. They're kind of free floating in the acceptable name, unacceptable name, respectable name category. But because the connotations are white, and because the connotations aren't black, Therefore, that name qualifies. So I could see Raven hiring a white bitch named Sun Spirit. But I definitely would think that if a girl's name was Star Keisha, she would automatically be like, no, I'm not hiring her because, you know, I see Keisha, I see the name Star. I'm going to just automatically assume all these anti-black ass, all these capitalist ass, or rather classist ass things about this person based on the fact that their name is not perhaps readily found in a baby book. And with that being said, I just want to kind of, you know, give a little side eye to you, Whoopi Goldberg, because, girl, for a minute, I thought you was like a wild-ass coon on the loose. And now, you know, seeing your reaction to raven-symone, I feel like you really was clutching your pearls for dear life. I really do feel like that shit kind of fucked you up because, really, bitch, your real name is Karen. And your name is Whoopi Goldberg for studio purposes, for money purposes, whatever the fuck. But, bitch, Goldberg is seemingly a Jewish last name. Whoopi, I'm not sure where that comes from. I didn't read into it, girl. I checked your Wikipedia just to find out your real name. But your real name is Karen. And so I think in ways, like, with someone having a chosen name that's perhaps again, not typical, not seemingly respectable or rooted in Christianity, therefore, I feel like Whoopi kind of was like, damn, bitch. What about me? What if you seen a bitch with Whoopi Goldberg? Would you, like, if Whoopi Goldberg wasn't a household name, would you get hired? If Raven-Symone Pierman wasn't a household name, would you get hired? These are questions that bitches need to be asking themselves instead of sitting here trying to look down on somebody because their name isn't a name that you've heard before or a name that you associate with some sort of lower classness, because a name does not dictate anything about that person other than what the fuck their parents was feeling at the time. You feel me? My mom decided my mom was like, I'm gonna name you Roxanne. But then she said no because she didn't want me to have a nickname like Roxy. And then when she decided on Tatiana, she hyphenated my name because she said she thought it was interesting. And she told me she came up with my name because of a perfume. And then my middle name came because of Mercedes Boy, which is a Pebble song. So it's like, well, where do names even come from? And why the fuck is there so much weight balanced on them? But more importantly, why is Raven-Symone trying to look at the camera and tell all these black women out there that if your name does not meet a certain standard of respectability, you don't deserve a job, you don't deserve stability and survival? That is evil as fuck. And that's wild. I need y'all to stop featuring her because she's already said too much. But this is some other next level coon light skin shit. And I want to make a second video, but y'all gonna have to let me charge my shit. Okay? Bye. So morally, like, on the right side of shit was, in fact, who you truly are. And that is not the fucking case. Because every time I look at the media and I see your name, it's always attached to some anti-black ass, coonerific ass, light-skinned ass, I'm from every continent in Africa ass bullshit. And I'm sitting here like, why are people so surprised when, again, we don't saw you were hanging with Mr. Cooper? I can't confirm that because I don't really remember that show because that was a long time ago. And then, most famous, you are remembered for That's So Raven being Raven the motherfucker Baxter. You are not Raven Baxter. You are Raven the fuck Symone Pierman. That's who you really are. But because the show was named That's So Raven, I believe a lot of people internalize this idea that the person who is so headstrong and Raven-Symone, bitch, I need you to be quiet. Like, I need you to be so fucking quiet right now because I'm about to read you for fucking filth. Actually, shit, let me get my spectacles, darling. Okay. Let's read this bitch, all right, shall we? Now first, Raven. I've been wanting to say this shit for so long, and I'm so excited that I finally have the space, the time, the battery life, okay? First, Raven, don't nobody know you, bitch. We don't know who you are. We don't know. No one knew. For a long time, I want to say the first thing that we knew you from was the Cosby Show. You was a sassy little light-skinned child with some wild eyebrows trying to, you know, get your little fame, get your little coin. Cute. Then I think we know who you are. We don't know you. And therefore, it's so important that we start to know her through what she's putting out as an adult. It seems like her parents sheltered her for a large part of her life. It seems like she really did get that light-skinned brainwashing. And if you're a light-skinned person, there is a lot of brainwashing going on in terms of like light-skinned folks being able to navigate and have mobility. There is privilege for sure.